BYD Australia is bringing 3 more vehicles to Australia, which is really great news. I'll get into them in a minute. The first one will be in actually just a few weeks. It's now coming up to the end of June, and it will be in or around August. That's when it will be released, the first one. This is not long after the BYD Dolphin was released, just last week. I was at the launch event, so it's really quite sudden, or quite quickly after, I think, you know. I'm such a big fan already. The BYD Seal, if you YouTube this, you'll see it all over. Basically, it's a cheap Tesla Model 3, and I'll get into some stats later in the video, just to give you a rough idea of what you can expect from it. But it has a big battery, looks better than a Tesla in my opinion, which is very subjective, but I really think it looks a really good car. And inside looks really nice too. I think the BYD Seal will do really well in Europe and the UK, actually, because sedans are quite popular there, particularly the UK. I haven't seen the data on this, but I do feel like there are a lot of sedans in the UK going up and down the main motorways. So the first vehicle in August, roughly August, is the BYD Seal. It will offer a single or dual motor variant, both using the same battery. So 82 kilowatt hour battery, which is actually built partly into the frame of the car, kind of like the Tesla Model Y, for example, with the battery, which is kind of built into the frame a little bit now. That didn't used to be the case. They did decide to do that just a couple of years ago. Power ranging from 230 kilowatts or 308 horsepower to 390 kilowatts, 522 horsepower. And a maximum driving range of up to 570 kilometers, WLTP, which is fairly accurate. Fairly accurate. So if you drove it on the motorway at 90 kilometers per hour or 100, I think you might actually see 550, 570 in one charge. If you drove at 110, for example, you'd probably get something maybe up to 500, I think, maybe. But I don't think you get more than 500 on a full charge, and that's really pushing it low. This depends obviously on all sorts of things, as you know, such as the heat of the battery, the temperatures outside, hills, if you're running air conditioning or heating, that sort of stuff, of course. Pricing details for the Seal in the Australian market, they haven't said anything, but the aim is to make it competitively priced and accessible to a wide range of consumers. One was just seen a few days ago in Victoria, actually, doing some testing, talking about Victoria. They recently just got rid of the EV rebate. I don't know why. So I would encourage people to actively write to the local MP and try and make some noise about it, because it's crazy. And they also charge a fair bit more on stamp duty for EVs. So, for example, the BYD Dolphin, the stamp duty is $1,100 in New South Wales, $1,500 in Queensland, and $2,500 in Victoria. But in New South Wales and Queensland, they have good rebates, I think. In Queensland, they've just doubled it from $3,000 to $6,000 until the $45 million runs out, which is about 7,000 or 8,000 vehicles worth of rebates. Maybe by the end of the year, but I don't really know. That's just a bit of a guess on my part. They really might run out of that money. So I have mentioned this a couple of times. I won't keep on mentioning that, but it is definitely something to consider. A rebate isn't a guarantee that it is going to be there in so many months' time. So I don't know if it will be locked in when you go on the BYD website and you pay $1,000 deposit. And then when you pick the car up, if you can still kind of get that rebate, if that is 3 or 4 months later, I don't really know. So if anybody knows this, please write in the comments, because somebody did mention this on one of my last videos. If you place the order now, does that kind of lock in your rebate? I don't think it does, personally, but it might do. The next video after this will be about the Seal, so subscribe and make sure you watch that video, because it's a really interesting one. It's a really nice car, so I'm kind of keen to talk about it. The second vehicle, an electric pickup. So Australia is in need of an electric pickup, I think, but there are a few issues to overcome. In Australia, I think a lot of the demographic that buy pickup trucks these days, a lot of them, not all of them, it's a pretty mixed bunch. But I think a lot of them are quite Aussie blokes that like V8s. So not exactly the sort of people that will be happy to buy an electric vehicle of any sort. But there are electric pickups available and they're selling fairly well, which is fantastic. But it is, I think, a trickier market than the other markets. I'm not sure if it's the trickiest, but I think it might be one of the trickier ones. So just take a look at the Ford Lightning F-150 EV. They sold 15,600 last year. That's Ford, and that's globally. That's not many, really. And their target was a lot more than 15,600. And I recently did a video talking about Ford. Currently, they're on track to hit 17% of their sales targets this year. Not great at all. So something's going on at Ford. They're making cars but not selling them. So strange. Of course, pickups are driven by all sorts of people that are happy to drive an electric vehicle, an electric pickup. The F-150 and the Rivian have both sold a fair few. I mean, there are thousands of people that have bought them, but when you compare it to the size of the market, it's not a huge number, really. But nevertheless, I think it's a really great thing. And there's an extra point I want to mention at the end about this sort of stuff. So I will just get to that in a minute. The third vehicle, we don't actually know what it is. We just know that it's going to be potentially the BYD Tang. That's my guess. So let me know in the comments if you have an idea on what else it could be, but that's what I'm thinking. The third model to arrive within the next 12 months will be, as they say, an SUV positioned above the BYD Atto 3, mid-sized electric SUV. So the specific type of SUV is yet to become confirmed, but it could be the BYD Tang. It's a really, really big SUV, something similar in size to a Volvo XC90. So apparently the Tang can do 600 kilometers on a charge, something like that. BYD, they've been doing fantastic with their sales the last couple of years. If you've seen, the graph is like, it's going up like crazy. In China and around the world, they are fairly new to Australia in the last couple of years. And Europe, they're literally just cracking in this year into Europe. They'll clearly do really well, I think. Their cars generally have proper range, proper thermal management. They look great. People seem to be enjoying them. There are examples of BYD EVs now having driven 50 or 100,000 kilometers with zero issues at all, which is great. And how can you fault them, really? They get great ratings in safety tests, like 5 stars in the NCAP ratings. They're cheap, relatively speaking, compared to Legacy Auto, which is basically nowhere to be seen. I don't know what's going on at the offices for Toyota and Honda, but basically Legacy Auto is kind of not really doing anything. Nothing really dramatic in terms of moving their cars to EVs. And they're running out of time. An Australian-based engineering team is actually working with BYD in China. So this is to ensure that vehicles are suitable for the Australian market, checking things such as the ability for paint to deal with the sun, the thickness of the paint, and the types of plastics used, such as on the dashboard, the materials on the seats, the heat management for the batteries, and the quality of the air conditioning systems to ensure reliability, because they're going to be working heavily in Australia. So it's a pretty harsh place to live if you're a car, I think. Thanks to anybody for joining on Patreon or YouTube memberships, or anybody that has thought about buying me a coffee lately. Links to these are in the description below. And as I've mentioned earlier, this allows me to keep on creating these videos, which involves investing a tremendous amount of time in thorough research. My goal is to provide you with accurate information that you may not find readily available in the mainstream media. The easiest way to help, if you're a bit skint though, is just to press the like button, which shows YouTube that people like the video. And it makes a huge difference because I'm trying to do this as my day job, and when you chip in, you're helping me spread the information out there to help boost the uptake of EVs, in particular the cheaper end of the market, which is the part of the market we really need to get going. When you consider that a small and cheap petrol car uses about 11 cents per kilometre at today's prices, That adds up to $22,000 at today's prices in petrol, basically, for a small little petrol car to drive. So if we can power a lot of our cars from things like solar, this will make a huge difference. A small solar panel kit or setup like a 5 kilowatt setup will likely get you in Australia. A little bit unsure about the Alpine region in Victoria, for example, but on the east coast of Australia, you'll get something like very roughly 200 kilometers of range every day. So driving an EV can save you a fair bit of money if you're quite savvy with how you fuel it. And I think this is a really important thing in Australia. We have an abundance, like an actual abundance of irradiant energy just coming down every day, and we can just harvest it. It's great. Even if you were to put panels in your yard, because you don't need a permit to do that, as far as I'm aware, you can put a little kit in your yard if you've got some yard space and get some, maybe a cheap inverter, and you can put that into batteries and into your car. You can do stuff. These days we have YouTube, so we literally can Google this and find out how to get the energy from the sun and put it into our car without even touching the grid. But if you had it on your house and it went through the grid, that is also okay, of course. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button so that YouTube know that people are enjoying it, and subscribe for more daily videos about electric vehicles.